Welcome in, big.
The only place you play in the SEC that's going hard to play is Vanderbilt.
Here come the fans. 27-17, your final at Husky Stadium.
They could beat number 11 USC, and they just did. What a party here in Minneapolis. Minnesota, its first top 25 home win since 2021.
Scrambles and is shoved out of bounds. No time left. Arkansas pulls the upset.
Go. Welcome in, Big Ten backers. Just for all you all that lost last week and wanted to relive it, we played it for you. Got it back. We got Scott Reed from Ducks Sports Authority to join us. He's going to be talking some Ducks with us because we got a big old game coming. The Midwest Cornfest Game of the Week. We got to talk about it. We also got Vegas Matt in here. So what's up, guys? How we doing?
Doing good. Doing good.
Yeah, doing well. Thank you.
Are you excited about this week? Man, last week was killer, and then we got this coming up. Boom.
This week is going to be a big week.
Very big for college football. The Midwest Cornfest Game of the Week, or maybe we should call it Hazlenuts Game of the Week because it's out there in Oregon. I don't know. It might not be Filberts, but there are some nuts coming to town in Eugene, so be ready for it. Number 2, Ohio State, 5-0 at number 3, Oregon, also 5-0, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC. So that would be 4:30 your time, Scott, and Vegas. Both of you out on the West Coast. This is the first ever top 5 matchup in Autzen Stadium. It's going to be a talent-equated game where everyone has 4 or 5 stars. And we're going to see which ones rise up to the occasion, which ones show out. It's the battle for the future of the Big Ten in my eyes. You have the historical bully that wants to continue to take everyone's lunch money, and you have the new kid on the block ready to come claim the throne. So Oregon coming in, that team out west, what are they going to do? All right, Scott, I'm going to go with my biggest question marks for Ohio State, and then maybe I'll get yours for Oregon. Sound good?
Sounds good.
So starting the season, it was obviously O-line and quarterback. And well into week 5, week 6, now we're in week 7. Still not quite an answer. The O-line did ball out against Iowa. And that Iowa team was not giving up 100 yards all season. Ohio State comes in, 203 yards and 5 yards per carry. This Iowa team, even after Ohio State's only averaging 3.15 yards per carry, and that's after Ohio State raised that average a little bit. And Iowa not only played Ohio State, but they played 2 decent running teams, Minnesota and Iowa State, who both average well over 100 yards per game. Number 2 is quarterback Will Howard, transferring in from Kansas State. He's been kind of dynamite. I mean, he just has to throw the ball up in the air to those receivers, though. Smith makes one-handed catches like standard procedure. And can all this NFL talent keep their eye on the prize, not play the me game and play that team game and get things done? So those are the questions that I think Ohio State had to answer. Looks like they're keeping the team game going. It looks like Howard's on the right trajectory, and it looks like the offensive line started to put it together, kind of like I'm guessing you're going to say Oregon did too, because that was one of their kind of keys for me, was if that offensive line after the first couple of games of the season, if they were going to put it together. What do you got, Scott?
It was the offensive line, especially after, the first 6 quarters of the season, they gave up 7 sacks. I think I talked about that before. They gave up 5 in 14 games last year. So that's obviously a big key. But they've cleaned that up. So since that first half of the second game, they've been really good at protecting Dillon Gabriel. In fact, I was talking to Marcus Harper about this earlier this week, the guard for Oregon, and I pointed out that there was one play, and it ended up being an offsetting penalty that was an illegal man downfield. But this looked like stuff that you see that you design that never really happens. It was the perfect U-shaped pocket. It was the perfect 8 seconds back there. Dillon Gabriel he could have run down 28 different progressions. He couldn't find anybody. There was nobody open, but that pocket was so clean and so fresh and lasted for so long. And I know they only rushed 4 in that case, and when they're only rushing 4 and you got 5 linemen and a tight end blocking, you should have a good clean pocket. But in the first 2 games, that wasn't happening even with extra help. So that showed a lot of cleanup there. But again, is Michigan State's defensive line anywhere near the caliber of Ohio State's? That's another question. We don't know yet if that was just a good offensive line dominating a average defensive line, or if that is an offensive line that became great in the second 3 games of the season. The other question for me is running back, not Jordan James. Jordan James he's good, and he's going to do what he's going to do. He is very legit. 166 yards last week, and he probably could have had 266 if he wanted. So
didn't he have like 120 some in the first half?
He did. Yeah. It was all first half yardage, and the second half was a lot of coasting because we got up 31-0 and brought in the reserves. And so, but the question now is
the foot off the pedal type of thing, and you were wondering if that was something that was going to test all season, or if that was just maybe, just trying to save guys for future games.
I think there's some load management going on, obviously, but when you're up 31-0, last year Lanning left guys in, and that 31-0 became 45-0 or 52-0, and he's not doing that as much this year. He left Bo Nix in right up until the last minute last year. He wasn't bringing in Dante Moore in the first quarter, or in this case, Ty Thompson, who was the backup last year. He wasn't doing that last year, and he is this year. Is it load management? He's not going to tell me. I think so, but what do I know? I'm not in his position. But what the concern for me is the backup running back, because Jordan James can't carry the ball 40 times. Well, he can, but he shouldn't. And so is Noah Whittington going to be able to get some tough yards and better than the 2.8 per carry he's getting so far this year? Is he going to be able to do something to give Jordan James a break in that backfield so that they can get fresh legs in the fourth quarter out of Jordan James? And I think that's going to be critical. Fresh legs on Jordan James in the fourth quarter are going to matter. If he has fresh legs, he's going to be able to do some things that a person who's not has fresh legs won't be able to do. This isn't like they're playing a weak defensive line that they can pound and pound and pound, and their pounding gives Jordan James an advantage. They need to keep him fresh.
Absolutely. In a talent-equated game, you need those guys fresh. You need the defensive lineman fresh. Depth really counts. You see it when it's big on big, talent on talent all the time. If you can keep rotating your trenches, even more so on the defensive line than anywhere else. But running back has, that's just the position, the way it's developed over time. You need 2 running backs. And that's one strength that Ohio State has. They have 2 NFL caliber running backs in the backfield. So either one of them needs a rest. It's not missing them.
They do, yeah. Judkins and Trevion Henderson are both really, really good running backs. That's obviously a defensive key for Oregon. If you ask me a defensive key, I know that everybody say you got to shut down the passing game, and I don't think that's the case. I think you have to win first and second down. You have to get them so that you're in a known passing situation where, you're going to throw some 50-50 balls and they're going to catch some of them, but they're 50-50 for a reason. They're not going to catch 90 out of 100. So you want that situation to be, because that is still in the defense's favor. If they're throwing 50-50 balls too frequently on third down, you're going to win some of those. I looked at some stats. Somebody asked me about, has Ohio State played in a close game this year? And I don't put that on a team. I put that a lot on the quarterback, because the quarterback in a close game is the one that's going to make mistakes or raise the team above. And Will Howard last year was 1-4 in games decided by one possession or less, by single digits. And in those games, he was like 56% of his passes with 11 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. So that's what you want, is you want to try to force mistakes. He's 31% when he's pressured this year, completing 31% of his passes under pressure. That's the kind of things you want to try to force if you're Oregon. And you can't do that if you're not stopping the running game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when you can pin your ears back and go after the quarterback, Derek Harmon is first in the nation at quarterback pressures, and I think he has 25 on the season, and Jordan Birch is 21st in the nation, and somewhere around 21, 20, I can't remember the exact numbers, but they're getting after the quarterback quickly. So, if they can stop the running game, make it 3rd and long, that's great for Oregon. I mean, that's a big-time win. It's a big-time win for anyone, but when you're getting to the quarterback that quickly and with that much efficiency, man, and that's one of my keys to victory for Ohio State. Can they keep the pressure off of Will Howard? Because that's when he throws his errant passes. He tries to force things, which in some cases has been good because Jeremiah Smith can just catch the ball if it's within a 90
he can fix
90-yard
mistakes.
radius almost. Yeah, you could just throw the ball up to him, and I'm being facetious with the 90-yard radius, but it seems like that. Just throw the ball up to the dude.
It reminds me, and you may not remember UCLA in 1998 with Cade McNown, or maybe you do because he got drafted, I think, by the Bears and was awful. But he did a lot of that. He had a guy named Danny Farmer who was a former volleyball player. It was just throw the ball up and let Danny go get it. That's it. Every single play was throw the ball up and let Farmer go get it. And the guy was 6'5" and could jump like a basketball player, so he got a lot of those balls.
Yeah, and it's not like airing it out deep. It's just like get the ball in his general direction. It's not like throw it down the field 60 yards because Will Howard's not a throw it down the field 60 yards type of quarterback. He'll get it out there when he needs to, but he doesn't really hit those deep balls with much accuracy. And it's a good thing that he has Jeremiah Smith on his team. But last week you saw if you're going to double Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka is going to be open all day long, and he'll score those 3 touchdowns. That's the problem with Ohio State. They have stuff everywhere. It's the offensive line, and it's what Will Howard does. Can you protect him? Every time he's thrown an interception, which has only been 3 on the year, he's been under pressure. He's got 12 TDs, 3 interceptions, 71.5% completion percentage, 1,200 yards, 1,250 yards about. Last year he had 10 interceptions. He's really on pace for just under that, maybe like 8.5. So will this O-line protect? Will it open up holes? Will it stop Derek Harmon? Will it stop Jordan Birch? Donovan Jackson's back. He was out for a little while. Josh Simon, both on the left side of the line. So the left side of the line is good, but the right side of the line, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be able to hold up against talent-equated teams. We're about to see real quickly on Saturday, though.
We are, and I think that's going to be the trenches are always the key. I think in this case, a bigger key. It's just a bigger key because of what both teams want to do with the ball. They need to protect the quarterbacks. However, both of them have the capability of doing stuff with their legs if that breaks down. Both different ways. Will Howard's going to run over a lot more people than he's going to run around, and Dylan Gabriel is probably going to beat some people in a foot race if he gets to the edge. But they still present that threat, which forces defensive lines to be a little bit more honest in the way they do their rush. They can't just, unless it's 3rd and long, they can't pin their ears back on 2nd and 5. You've got to make sure that you protect everything that Will Howard could do or Dylan Gabriel could do. And I think that really reflects on just that battle in the trenches is going to be so decisive like it is in any big-time game.
And defensively for Ohio State, the short passes. I think that's a staple of Stein's offense, that he wants to get the ball out quickly, 2.5 seconds. And our linebackers in coverage are a little bit of a weak spot or a concern for me. Would you agree with that, Vegas?
Absolutely.
That's where you hit our defense, in my opinion. We have studs all across the backfield. We have studs on the defensive line. I don't think you're going to run it very well, as you saw last week with Caleb Johnson. I mean, he's been running out of this world, almost as good as Ashton Jeanty, but not quite the same.
Yeah, I don't know that they're going to get the kind of game they had out of Jordan James last week. I think Oregon's going to need to get something out of him. He's going to have to do something in the run game. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be interested to watch the short pass game because I don't know that the wide receivers are going to get a lot of space to make those plays. I think you're going to see the defensive. So the question is going to be, what can they do against the linebackers? Can they get a guy like Terrence Ferguson the ball against those linebackers to make some plays? When you do, he can make plays. That 62-yard gain last week was Terrence Ferguson making plays. Kenyon Sadiq, is he going to be able to do anything with his athleticism over there? I'm going to be interested to watch that and see how that plays out. And if they can complete enough of those, then it takes the pressure off of the run game. And that's, if you're spreading your guys out to make sure they don't do those, what are you leaving? What else are you leaving? That's always the chess match between coordinators, offensive and defensive. What is somebody leaving open to cover that? And I think, there's not a lot of weaknesses on that when you call the linebackers a weakness. I think there are probably 120 other teams that would love to have that weakness on their team.
For sure. And I think that's really Ohio State and Oregon right now. They have studs all around. And me and Vegas were talking a little bit about this earlier in the day. And when you have 4 and 5 stars on your team, you never know who's going to show up in these big-time games. Mm-hmm. Someone's going to show up. Someone's going to show out. And it could come from anywhere. So all these other games, they may have been playing down or may just, they rise to the top when time to play really starts. They might play down and take some plays off against those little nobodies, against, the Idahos of the world, and against the, sorry to say it for those Beavers, but the Oregon States of the world, or the Kent States of the world. The teams that Ohio State and Oregon have played, now they got to show out. Now they got to come to the party. This is the big dance. I mean, this is for what the Big Ten is going to be about. Right now, everyone's looking to Oregon. Everyone's looking to Ohio State to establish the identity of the Big Ten.
And in a way, some of the upsets that have happened, Indiana's a nice story, but right now, does anybody look at them as a long-term power in the conference? I don't know. What they've seen is Michigan's fallen off, Washington's fallen off, USC is not what they expected USC to be. So it really is Oregon and Ohio State left at the top, and they're looking for somebody else because in this expanded playoff era, you don't want to be the conference like the Big Ten that only has maybe 3 teams in the playoff. You want to be able to get that 4th team in there, and that right now doesn't look promising unless one of those other teams goes on a win streak. So these 2 teams are going to define what the conference looks like, I think, this year, and what they do the rest of the year will help to define it, because when they beat somebody else down the road, let's Ohio State plays Indiana late in the season. When Ohio State, if they beat Indiana and it's not a blowout and it's not 45-0 over Indiana, that helps define how good Indiana is, because they're now being held in comparison. It's what the SEC got away with for a long time. Georgia was ranked number 1, so everybody they beat, if it's close, that team must be.
That's a good team.
They get pulled up because of how good Georgia was. And I think you're going to see that happen with a lot of teams down the road here, at least this season, with both of these teams after this game. They're going to pull other people up with them because of their ability to play in this kind of a game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, what do we have here? We have turnover margin. You have 9 turnovers for Oregon. Total 5 of them lost, or they gained 5. Sorry, lost 9, gained 5. I got that all wrong. That's Ohio State. They've gained 9, lost 5. That's a 0.8 per game turnover margin. Oregon, on the other hand, has gained 5, lost 6. So that's negative 0.2. So Ohio State wins, at least statistically, wins the turnover battle. Total defense, Ohio State is first with 202 yards a game that they give up, versus 10th, Oregon gives up 263.4 yards per game. All right? Scoring defense, Ohio State is first, giving up 6.8 points per game. Oregon, 21st, giving up 17 points per game. Now, you got to look at the quality of the teams that they played. Obviously, those are inflated. Everyone knows Ohio State has played cream puffs up until this point. Iowa gave a little bit of a test. As you see, Michigan State probably not as good as maybe we were thinking the beginning of the season when they gave Boston College a little bit of a game. So it was like maybe Michigan State's good. So we're going to see those balance out real quick in a game like this, and then the next 4 games that Ohio State has. And I think Oregon's a little bit on the same trajectory, other than that Boise State. That's a really quality team, right?
It is, and I think it's a playoff
obviously
team.
They're rated, yeah.
They're a playoff team, or at least they look like it, and they have, they have one of the best running backs in the country, and they caught Oregon early, and it was a good time to catch them. And before the offensive line got everything figured out, but they're a good team, and that is their only losses to Oregon. I think Idaho has lost one other game. So if you look at what those teams have done that Oregon beat, Oregon State, their only loss, I think, is to Oregon. It's just there's a lot of wins against that competition. So is there a better competition for Oregon? I think so. Does that matter this weekend? I don't think so, because they know what they're facing. And I remind people, Ohio State faces teams as good as Oregon State in practice every day, right? They face 4- and 5-star second stringers. So they're used to playing elite talent, even in practice. So I don't think the fact that they played cupcakes in a game is as important as we want to make it out to be, because they have so much competition in practice. Do you want Go ahead.
And that schedule's going to get tough for Ohio State. Like you said, Indiana's jumped in out of nowhere. They're still going to Penn State. They have Michigan, who knows what they're going to end up being. The schedule's getting tougher. They got Nebraska on the schedule too. So there's some quality games coming up, and they might even play. What did we say, Vegas? It was 4 out of the next 5 games, maybe rated teams that Ohio State plays.
3 of the next 4. They'll have Oregon, Nebraska, Penn State with a bye in there. So
okay, in Indiana.
Indiana, Michigan's last 2 games of the year. They got Purdue, Northwestern in between. So
okay,
a little bit of a lull.
So a little lull there with Northwestern and Purdue. Ooh, man, Northwestern and Purdue. We'll talk about them later, but rough years for both of those 2 teams.
It is very rough for these guys.
We didn't do much of the offensive stats. Total offense, Ohio State's 9th with 510 yards per game. Oregon's 25th, 458.6 yards per game. Ohio State's 4th in scoring, 46 points per game. Oregon, 32nd at 35 points per game. Nothing real glaring there. They're pretty close, really, with both, if you count the talent, who they're playing, cupcakes versus even a rated team, which is highly rated. And you talked about Boise State making the playoffs. They might even be one of the top 4 teams. A group of 5 can make one of the top 4 teams. They just have to be the highest rated conference champion, and they'll be in there. So I could see possibly if the Big 12 or the ACC has a couple losses for their conference champion, easily Boise State could jump into the top 4.
It's going to be tough, and I say that because I think the ACC, while people may not be overly impressed with some of the luck that Miami had in the last 2 games, the ACC is really a 2-team conference right now, and one of those teams is coming away with 1 or 0 losses, and I don't know that the committee will have enough fortitude to put Boise State over a Miami if Miami has 1 loss. I just don't know that. The Big 12, on the other hand, I don't know what they got coming out of there. Utah wasn't what we thought they were going to be, especially without Cam Rising. Oklahoma State's not what we thought they were going to be. I don't know what we
BYU.
Iowa State and BYU, that's it. And I could
crazy.
see Boise State getting in over a Big 12 champion. I could absolutely see that.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me one bit. I mean, I think they'll cannibalize each other. I mean, Utah's still there though too. And we're getting off topic. Let's get back to this big ass game, man. This is what we've all been waiting for. We've all circled our calendars. I run across this statistic today, and I just wanted to bring it up because this is what really changed my mind. The red zone stats. I was set to pick Oregon until I came across these red zone stats. Ohio State is first in the nation in red zone scoring 100% of the time. Of the 21 possessions in the end zone, 20 were touchdowns. The other one was a field goal. Oregon is 93rd in the nation. Of the 21 possessions, 17 they scored on, 14 being touchdowns. So 3 of them field goals. Red zone defense for Oregon is 104th in the nation. Ohio State's is 3rd. Those are glaring stats for me. Glaring.
They are.
Because I had a team... We had an Ohio State team that couldn't score in the red zone. There's multiple years. Last year was one of them. And it was just frustrating. You can't win the big games when you can't score inside the end zone. If you're kicking field goals against talent-equated teams, you lose. That's what happened to Ohio State in 2019 against Clemson. They kicked a bunch of field goals. They were way up. But then Clemson came back. You could score 2 touchdowns and get back in the game with, if you're scoring 4 field goals, no big deal.
Right. And
so, have you noticed that? Has that been something that has been eye-popping to you at games?
Yes and no. Throwing interceptions in the red zone, that'll skew your stuff every time. And I think, it's hard to say why Dylan Gabriel did that, because when I watched him last year, he didn't make those kind of mistakes. And I think he was trying to do things. I don't know why. There were things he was trying to do not because he's a bad quarterback that makes bad decisions all the time in the red zone, but because he was trying to do something extra. He was trying to do something extra. He'll never tell us exactly what was going through his mind, but he was pressing for some reason on basically all three of those passes. The one
I
Brian
throw those
Addison,
two out against Michigan State. I throw those out as outliers because everyone has a bad game every now and then, and Dylan Gabriel has the body of work that does not say he's going to make those throws on a consistent basis.
Yeah, and so he's thrown 3 in the last 2 weeks in the red zone. One was a pick 6. The other 2 ended drives. Do I worry about the red zone production on defense? Not entirely, because I think that is also skewed really heavily with reserves. Michigan State scored both times in the red zone last weekend, but both of those were in the fourth quarter against reserves. And Boise State. I think there's some skew there that it's really hard to put that. When I do the report card for the site, I tell them I'm going to grade the whole team. If I could grade just the starters, they would be different. But I have to grade the whole team, and so the defense doesn't always get the best grade because you're running reserves the entire fourth quarter. Sometimes stats get skewed, and things don't look as good.
That's true to every team's. Really, I mean,
exactly.
You're going to get skewed stats. So when you start adding those up as more games go on, everything's going to be more even, right? You have some of those outliers in the beginning of the season, especially in Ohio State's case, where they're playing nobodies all season. But now you're getting into conference schedules, and some of those stats are going to start evening out with other teams. And then they may be, inflated a little bit still, but by week 8, everything should be about what it is. So we're starting to get close to that point, getting the conference games, and it's going to be amazing to see if those stats still hold up in the next couple of weeks.
And it's going to be fun to watch that in this game because, like I said, I'm not sure how much it's situational things that are outliers, or is it a real problem that's going to crop up in this game? If they allow Ohio State in the red zone 7 times and can't stop them, and Ohio State scored 7 touchdowns on those, that's not going to be good. So you get 1, you want to keep them out of the red zone, but 2, if you get down there, the goal, force a field goal. Always want to force the field goal down there, first you want the turnover, but that's going to be harder to do. So you want to stop them from getting that touchdown. If they can make those stops in the red zone, either team, if they start making stops in the red zone but then converting on their own opportunities, you're going to see what that game looks like. I think it's going to be more difficult in this game because I think you're going to see just a different level of play from both teams. They know that this game means something. They know what the other team is. Chip Kelly knows what it's like to play in Autzen. He knows what it's like to coach there. They know what's going on, and I don't think this is going to look anything like the first 5 games of the year for either one of these teams.
For sure. And I'm really glad that Chip Kelly is on Ohio State's team, because we were talking about we don't trust Ryan Day in big games, and we think Chip Kelly will be that balancing factor. I mean, Ryan Day hasn't shown a lot in big games that he can win the big ones, but also Dan Lanning's in that same kind of mold as well. So this is going to be who has been able to take that offensive coordinator role to head coach role and run with it. You got to get a game like this to take it to that next level.
You do, and the thing with it's hard to compare because Ryan Day's an offensive coach, and play calling obviously under Chip Kelly is different, and I think Chip Kelly's a great play caller. Lanning doesn't call the offensive plays, but he does make the decisions on when to go and when not to go. I'm hoping that in the offseason they reviewed some of these fourth down decisions, and I don't disagree with most of the decisions. I disagreed with most of the decisions were good, except the decision to go for it on 4th down at the end of the first half against Washington in the first game. That should have been a field goal.
I agree with that one. Yep.
Every other one,
and that was the difference in that game.
It was 3 points.
3 points.
I was okay with every other decision. I just didn't like the play call. And it's funny because we talked about the Washington game where they did the sprint right against Washington State and it failed, right? The sprint option.
The option. Yep.
Oregon did that exact same play almost, not quite exact because Bo didn't run it against Washington in that game on a 4th down near the goal. Ran him to the right on short side of the field and tried to pin a pass into Troy Franklin with 12 guys covering him. I mean, it was just a really bad play call. There was nowhere to go with that ball other than an interception or incomplete because it wasn't getting completed there. That's just an example. When you have a
condensed field like that, it makes it all more important not to run to that boundary side. It makes no sense to me.
It makes no sense unless it's a misdirection, right? If you get everybody flowing there and then you have, lots of teams have done it, you have the tight end flowing to the other side and you just stop and throw back.
Yeah.
And somebody makes a play, they make a play. If they make a play on that play, you're okay with that because you got one-on-one coverage on that tight end. But man, running into 12 guys just doesn't make a whole ton of sense to me unless you can literally outmuscle every single one of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but those are play calls. Those are play calls in the red zone. I think could have been better. The decisions were mostly fine. It's the play calls.
Sure.
And it is something where Lanning, as a defensive coach, has to work with Will Stein to improve his thought process in the red zone because Lanning's not going over and calling the plays for him. So that's something that you have to work with a young coordinator on to make him better.
Absolutely. Well, man, just to get us pumped up a little bit for this game coming up on Saturday, a big one. 2 versus 3 in Autzen Stadium, man. It's got to feel great. You're going to be there. You're going to love every minute of it, I'm sure. You're going to hold your emotions in because you got to write about it. But I'm going to show you this.
In the press box, a regular writer. It's going to be a lot of fun, even from the press box. A lot of times when you're up there, it's so fun to look down on the crowd and watch what they're doing, watch how they're enjoying this game because you're seeing it from a different perspective than them. And I've been down there. We still have season tickets in the same place I've had for almost 30 years. But it's fun to watch this from upstairs and see the excitement that's going to build and the blackout that they're going to wear, when the different things happen with the shout and the other things that happen in this game. It's a lot of fun. It's an environment that is. I think every environment in college football is awesome, just about. I love college football so much more than the NFL because you don't have a shout in the NFL or you don't have a Virginia Tech walking out to enter Sandman, right? You don't have that in the NFL. You have this business, and that's okay.
And you don't have the bands, man. The bands make it for me. I love that atmosphere.
You don't have anybody dotting an I. You have some cheerleaders once in a while, but this is going to be so much fun. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be the press box is going to be packed. People are getting turned away, as you know. Requests are getting denied.
The one that got away.
It's going to be crazy. It is going to be a crazy environment, and it's going to be probably an Autzen Stadium record for attendance. So that's going to make it even better. Some people are reminded, and you maybe don't remember it. They called it Fright Night. It was 2009. USC came to Oregon and played a night game on Halloween. And it was the craziest game from an atmosphere perspective that I can remember, outside of some unique things that happened with comebacks like Oklahoma, things like that. But It was the craziest game from start to finish.
Is this the biggest game in the history of Autzen Stadium?
It is. The highest ranked game at Autzen Stadium prior to this week was Oregon was number 4, Arizona State was number 6 in 2007. That's the highest ranked matchup prior to this weekend. So a 2 versus 3 is higher than anything that's ever happened. Obviously some number 1 teams have come in there, but not at the same time that Oregon was a top 5 team. Or Oregon was a top 5 team, was a number 1 team, but not when anybody came in there top ranked. They were number 1, I think, for UCLA and Arizona in 2010. So it's just never been anything like this. It was going to be a big game even without all this because I think the last time Ohio State came to Oregon was 1967, if I'm recalling right. Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, was the year Autzen opened. So
that's interesting.
It's 50. Well, that's 57 years ago, and I know that because I'm a year older than that. So 57 years ago. So it was going to be big either way, just having Ohio State come in, but this makes it bigger.
All right, I got a little video just to get us pumped up before we make our picks. Here we go.
Double team. A double team. Bam! I'm knocking you 3 yards backwards.
27-yard catch earlier on this drive.
And then this one that you'll be seeing in his highlight reel all year long.
Ball doesn't even move. It just sticks to his glove. Really a nice job.
It's going to be a fade to the corner, though, to Smith. Oh, he one-handed it again. How many times is this kid going to do this year?
Really wanted to highlight that offensive line, the way they're working together. That center, what's his name? Pompo? Something
Poncho.
Like that? Poncho. Yeah, Poncho. You had an interview with him just recently, didn't you? Or
No,
least,
I did Marcus
Duck
Harper.
Sports Authority?
I did Marcus
Okay.
Harper. Well, Poncho does interviews after practice. He did an interview earlier this week after practice. So I always read an article about the interviews that they do. Those are media availability. They do 4 to 5 players twice a week. And so he did speak earlier this week. I think he was on Tuesday.
Okay, yeah. And then there was another play where he broke off from the center, came around the guard and the tackle, and then picked up the blitz on the outside. There was no one on the inside. And I was just like, that is communication, and that is stellar offensive line play. I was just impressed, man, because all this talk about Oregon's offensive line not gelling. And I was just like, that's the ultimate offensive line play. When you can know there's no one in the center coming, I can trust my guards. I'm going to back around and try to pick up this blitzing. I think it was a cornerback at the time. And
Yeah,
that
it was.
against Michigan State, too.
Yeah.
You remember the play?
I do, because Poncho's a lot more athletic than he looks.
Absolutely.
When you meet him in person, it looks like he can't jump more than about 1 inch off the ground. He kind of moves like, he's just real. I mean, he's from Hawaii, and he's got that attitude.
Yeah.
When he steps out there, his athleticism stands out, and the ability of a center to make that kind of a play is separate of the communication aspect of it. It's just impressive athleticism, and Poncho's a great guy. Family's really cool. His brother played for Oregon as well, his older brother.
Oh, awesome. Good to know. Well, are we ready to make some picks? We'll let our guest pick first, because I heard he's got some good news from the Buckeye side.
I did pick. I put in my official prediction on the site today at 34-28 for Ohio State. Until I see differently, I think the running backs are going to be the difference here for Ohio State. It's really difficult to stop both of them long enough to get enough stops. Do I think they're going to score 50? No, I don't think either one of these teams is going to score 50. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. Because I do think Oregon has good enough defense to keep them in this game. But they're going to have some plays that there's breakdowns because they're playing really good running backs. They're playing somebody almost as good as Ashton Genty, right? And so I think you're going to see that play out. So I had 34-28 Ohio State. I didn't want to go for a full touchdown, so I went with 34. You might get a couple of stops for a field goal is the way I'm looking at it. Oregon will score, just not enough.
I mean, and that sounds respectable. I think it's going to be a good game. I think it'll be close. I think it could possibly be a blowout if Ohio State plays like they could, with an offensive line doing everything that they need to. Do I think that's likely? No. So I think it's going to be a close game. I think the nerves will get to them early because I think that stadium's going to be loud. It's going to be ruckus. My concern for Oregon is their DBs. They don't have one DB over 5'10". Is that correct? That's a starting DB against these receivers?
It depends on if you talk about corners or safeties. They do on safety, but they're not overly tall. Last year Oregon had Kyrie Jackson, who was 6'3", 6'4". And
they better jump out of the gym.
No,
Muhammad can cover, man. I wouldn't sleep on Muhammad.
Yeah, Muhammad can cover.
Sure. Muhammad's shown he can cover.
He's on against Michigan, so he's really good. And I don't think that. And by the way, if he's 5'10", I'm 6'2", but he's still good in coverage. And I'm not. Where they're going to struggle is that second cover guy, because the second cover guy that Oregon had coming into the year is still injured. He's a guy named Jaleel Florence, who was a starter last year and got injured with 3 games left in the year. So, yeah, I agree. The defensive backs will be the area where if they're making plays over the top, it could be a long day.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Ohio State has people everywhere that could show up. Are they going to show up? Who knows? We'll see. And I think Oregon has that to some extent, too. It's just not all over the field like Ohio State has. And even at their backups, Ohio State's loaded. Does it translate? We'll see. You know, we've only seen it against cupcakes. Oregon's tested with Boise State. You want to go into the stats on this? You want to go into the Vegas numbers? Vegas? That's what you're here for.
That's the only reason you all bring me in. So, yeah, let's get diving right in. So you're seeing with most sports books, the consensus opening was -1 in favor of Oregon. You have seen that spread favorite switch to Ohio State. Most sports books you'll see right around -3. The one I like to utilize has it -3.5 in favor of Ohio State. You've seen a slight uptick in the over-under. It started at 51.5. It's gone up to 52.5. About 93% of the cash over the last 36 hours is favoring Ohio State in the spread. I do like to caution people when you get really large fan bases, Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, you want to be a little cautious of the flow of bets and the flow of money. You get a little people overzealous there. So take a lot of Ohio State flow of money with a grain of salt. However, I would say about 56% of the cat going to the over in the last 36 hours. You'll hear me talk about this a lot. I talked about it a lot during rivalry week. Of course, we have a big rivalry coming up here with Texas and Oklahoma. I absolutely stay away from picking spreads in these kind of games. Oregon has elite talent. Ohio State has elite talent. I have no idea who's going to show up. Oregon wins by 13. Ohio State wins by 13. Neither score would surprise me. And I look at that and I say, when I look at that and I say neither of those scores surprise me, I absolutely stay away from the spread. I would disregard the money with Ohio State too. Again, large fan base. I actually think these are two teams that aren't actually clicking the way they should be. I think they both will. I think this is going to be the Big Ten championship game. But because I don't think they're clicking, because I think Ohio State could stutter a little bit, I actually like the under here. How about you?
I'm with you. I'm on the under all the way. Yep. I don't know if you saw that finger down. I wanted to get it in before you.
I gave a score prediction, so you got my numbers. It's over and what it is. But we do score predictions weekly, so even if I'm way off, which I haven't been way off yet this year. It's been pretty close. I usually go with Vegas. I sort of take the Vegas line and over-under. And I do a score based on that. I went with my gut a little bit this time and just went 34-28. Oregon fans hold out hope. I went 38-17 in 2021, and you know how that turned out. I know it's not the same team. It's not the same defense. But, hey, if I'm a reverse jinx, so be it.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I don't know if we brought it up yet, but we talked about it before we came on live. That defense for Ohio State back when Oregon came to Columbus, it was a historically poor defense. Ohio State has not played like that. They had a defensive coordinator who was a DB coach that is no longer a defensive coordinator. He's a DB coach at Cincinnati. So there's a reason that team was bad. They also had Alex Grinch, who got fired from USC for having historically terrible defenses, and he's now a safeties coach at Wisconsin. So that should tell you a little bit. 2 defensive coordinators who are now relegated to position coaches.
Yeah, and the funny part is Alex Grinch was a good coach at Washington State. He was a good coordinator there. It was the right fit for him. He chased the big bag.
Bar at Washington State to be a defensive coordinator.
What's that?
It's a low bar to be defensive coordinator at Washington State.
It is,
but he made big moves there.
But what he did there didn't translate to the big time programs. The type of defense he ran worked with a Washington State where you take an underrated guy and you coach him up, and you make these guys have a chip on their shoulder. You can't do that at an Ohio State or USC because those guys are different types of players. They're different types of players, and you can't coach the same. It's a different world.
It's like a college coach going to the NFL.
It's why a lot of coaches translate. They get to these big programs and they start to go, oh, And I won't use it because it's only one game, but Kalen DeBoer had like 5 or 6 games last year that was decided by 7 points or less. Mm-hmm. You're not going to have that left forever. You can't win all of those games forever. So you better figure out how to keep your foot on that pedal when you need to and not let teams back in the game. And those are things that you learn when you go from a good program to something like an Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan. Mm-hmm. You can't get away with the things you got away with at Washington State. And I think Alex Grinch is a perfect example of that. You can't get away with at Ohio State and USC what you did at Washington State. It doesn't work the same.
Absolutely.
It should, but it doesn't.
Hey, well, I'm jealous, Scott, man. Have a blast at the game. Enjoy it. Send me some pictures, something.
I will try. I tend to get so caught up in moments. I'm trying to capture moments in words that
absolutely.
I love to take pictures. It's kind of stuffy, but I do.
Snapshot of that, man. Give me one so I can post it up here.
I will get one
on
for
my
you.
mantle.
I will get one for you.
That would be awesome. I appreciate it, man. Well, thanks for joining us again. Always a pleasure. Love all the content you bring, man. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a good weekend. All right. Well, we got more shows to get to. More big-ass games. Let's start with this one. Texas. OU. Man. In the SEC for the first time, number 1 Texas, 5-0 at the State Fair, takes on number 18 Oklahoma at 4-1, 3:30 on ABC. The Red River rivalry, because that's what I'm going to call it. It sticks with me. I like it better. It's been played since the 1900, like 1900, and 1939 at the Texas State Fair. It's played there since 1939. OU is known as a defensive team, and they have to limit the possessions of these Longhorns, man. Texas is actually the better defense statistically. Number 2 in scoring defense, giving up only 7 points per game compared to OU giving up 16 points per game. That's 19th in the nation. You would not have thought that unless you deep dove into these stats, because everyone's talking about OU's D, and with their coach, why wouldn't you? The total defense for Texas is 3rd, giving up 228 points per game, or yards per game, and OU is 41st, 324 yards per game. Offensively, Texas is 7th, 513 yards per game, while OU is 121st. I'll say it again, 121st, under 300 yards per game. That is staggering. I know they have a good defense. They've played against some better teams, though, right? They had Tennessee at home. Texas hasn't played much, and I'll say that lightly because they did play at the Big House against Michigan. So they had that game, but they just blew out Michigan. They exposed Michigan, and they've kind of coasted ever since, even with their second-string quarterback. Ewers is supposed to be back, so that'll be awesome. If he comes back, he put up 4 touchdowns against OU last year. I don't see this as a game at all. I think the only way OU can hang in this game is that +8 turnover margin they have, and they can hang their golden hat on that. If they're going to have at least 3 turnovers, at least 3. And they're starting a freshman quarterback in this game. Michael Hawkins Jr. started last game against Quinn Ewers, who I just said, 4 touchdowns in the Red River rivalry last year. Give me Texas all day. The Longhorns have never lost to the Sooners when they've been ranked number 1. And what can OU do? What can they do? They gotta compete. They gotta get third down conversions. They're 130th out of 134 teams in third down conversions. They gotta keep Texas off the field, and you can't do that at 130th in third down conversions. At least they're 59th in fourth down conversions, 4 of 7 attempts, but they're going to need the 7 attempts in this game if they want to stay in it. What do you think? What do you got on this one? Give me those Vegas numbers, buddy.
First off, I want your opinion. Neutral site rivalry games. What's your thoughts on them?
I think if it's historical like this, awesome. Keep it. But I don't want to see this for Michigan and Ohio State. This has been something they've done since 1939. Keep it that way. Let's go.
No,
if it's historical, if it's part of the rivalry, right? The Texas State Fair. It's not Texas Oklahoma without it being a neutral site. Cotton Bowl, baby, all day.
I respectfully disagree. I think it takes away from everything that makes college football great. But
have you been there? You got to go.
No, I have not been. I have been to Dallas. I have not been to the Cotton Bowl. I don't like it. Florida.
Don't
Georgia.
knock it till you try it, man. Don't knock it till you try it.
No, I love that home field, and I think it is such an impact on a team's schedule when you got to go on the road to your rivals.
Yeah.
It makes such a big impact. When the stadium's 50-50, we've been to a lot of neutral site playoff games. It doesn't have the same buzz or juice. I don't care. So I really
just don't like the NFL stadiums. That's what I don't like. When you get that neutral site game beginning of the year or in a bowl game or something, like when you do the TCU versus Ohio State, I went to that. Yeah. I would much rather that been in Fort Worth. That would have been so much more fun to watch, just because I like to see the college atmospheres. But when you're talking about an historical game like that at the Cotton Bowl, when in Rome, man, go embrace it, man. It's something that they love. So if they don't want to have it at their home teams, more power to them. I'll go embrace it. I'll go check it out.
I guess I want to, like I said, get your perspective on it.
Yeah.
But
Get off my lawn, old man.
I am an old man, and I'm fully embrace that. But getting into the numbers, you saw Texas start out at -8.5. You've seen that skyrocket to your points to -14.5, so a 6-point swing in favor of the Longhorns. Over/under started at 51, dropped just slightly to 50.5. And again, you throw out all these numbers, and logic and reason are telling you this is a no-brainer.
Rivalry.
It's a rivalry game. Throw everything you just said out the window. You got to remember that, especially in college football, some of these teams look at these rivalry games and they think this is it. This is the most important game on our schedule. You look at Oklahoma with 2 losses. They'd really have to run the table in the SEC, which is not easy to do in order
to win this game.
Yeah. And then you got
a legacy for yourself. Yeah.
You know, just Oklahoma's schedule. You got at Ole Miss, at Missouri, against Alabama, at LSU. So they're looking at this not just saying beat our rival, beat a number 1 team. They're looking at this saying we cannot slip up if we lose this game. And I think that that lights a really big fire under that.
Backed into a corner.
Yeah. And it's just with rivalry games, you got to take everything, you got to throw it at the door. We talk about it in week 13 constantly. Every game we talk about, take all your stats, throw them out. Same philosophy applies here. And I do not take spreads in rivalry games. So with that, I actually like the under here. I think it's chippy. I think it's sloppy. Ewers coming back. I don't like Oklahoma's offense all that much. So I'm going to go with the under at 50.5.
I just don't see what Oklahoma can do to keep this offense from scoring. And the defense is great for Texas. I do think that you throw some things out, but not in this game. Not with those stats. Give me Texas all day long. Lay those freaking points.
Venables is a great defensive mind. He is a great defensive mind. If anybody could stymie Texas, I would put it on him. To your point, how does Oklahoma score? I don't know.
They need turnovers.
And because of that, I like the under. That's because I think Venables can stymie Texas. I still think Texas wins. I don't think this is an outright upset, but I think it's an uglier game than people think.
41st in total defense in the nation. That's not saying much about a great defense.
12th in points against on defense, though, too. So I like that. They're not giving up a ton of points, maybe moving the ball down the field, but it's a bend, not break in college football.
For sure. I mean, always if you have a bend, don't break. That's why I don't like the total defense stats as much as points given up.
And again, we don't really – everyone will notice here we haven't really talked about points per game on offense or defense.
They're 19th in points per game.
On defense?
Points per game. Yeah.
I thought they were 12th, but –
I just looked it up on collegefootballstats.com.
Fair enough. Yep. Fair enough. But anyway, that's a top 20 in points against defense. They've also played Houston this year, not a great offense, but they played Tulane as well, Auburn, Tennessee. So they have played some teams this year, Oklahoma has.
Sure.
That is a valid number to look at. again, I don't know what you're going to see out of a rivalry game, and because of that, I think play it conservatively.
Lay those freaking points. Let's go. Let's get on to the next one. Because it's ranked on ranked, we got to go over this one before we get back in the Big Ten. So what about this Ole Miss LSU game? Man, oh man. This is a game, it's a must-win. Both teams are backed in the corner. Both teams are like OU. They need to win this game, or they're on the outside looking in for the 12-team playoff. Number 9, Ole Miss at number 13, LSU. Both of them with one loss. What are they going to do now? Where are you going to go from here? I said it, ranked on ranked. This is a make or break game for both teams. The loss will get you cut out, I think. I think you're pretty much cut out with everyone else in the SEC. 19th is their points per game. Third defensively in points per game, giving up only 7.5 for Ole Miss. So LSU is in the 30s for both. Those stats, like I said, I like to go with the scoring points per game when I'm making my decisions here. Give me Ole Miss. I don't want to take Ole Miss, but I'm going to take Ole Miss. Tell me about those Vegas numbers. What do we got here?
So an interesting line spread. It actually started out at -2.5 in favor of LSU. You've seen that completely flip to Ole Miss at -3.5. So a 6-point swing and a favorite swing.
Which is interesting because you talked about this earlier, and you talked about, the big fan bases, which you would think LSU's fan base is a lot bigger than Ole Miss.
It's not the same. Again, you look at, I know people don't like it, Ohio State, Texas, right? Two of the biggest bases in the country, just based on how many people graduate, passion for it. Same with Alabama, right? I've read a lot about this with Vegas insiders about the fact that Alabama just has such a mass cult following, how passionate they are about their team, that they will swing lines just because they blindly throw money at their team. Guess what? Ohio State does the same thing, same as Texas. You really don't see that kind of movement on any other programs except those three. So I only point that out in that case. This is one where I think you're seeing a lot of the money, especially the sharps, saying we really don't know what we're going to get out of LSU, even though we think they're a little bit more complete than they were last year. Offense isn't as great. Defense is better. Ole Miss is just one of those where you don't know what Ole Miss team you're going to get that week. They can get the losing 20-17 at home against Kentucky. They can also just go out and dominate a team. So I think that enigma factor is intriguing. And when people are seeing plus money, they gobbled it up. I see that over-under sitting at 62.5, down a little bit from 64. Again, about 81% of the cash over the last 36 hours favoring Ole Miss. Over-under staying pretty consistent. This is one of those, if you kind of look back at some of the earlier ones, I know Ole Miss was a little sluggish against Kentucky. However, I still think LSU can put up points. I think Ole Miss can put up points. I go with the over on this one.
And both of them really haven't had much of a test as far as schedule. Obviously, LSU had the USC loss in the beginning of the season. Then they had SC, they had UCLA. Not much. So this is a test really for both teams in terms of who they've played so far. Ole Miss also, not much of a schedule to date. They lost to Kentucky. They had SC. And after that, there was really no one. I mean, unless you want to count Wake Forest as a somewhat quality team, which I wouldn't. So I don't think we really know what we're going to get.
No, you don't. But you hit the nail on the head.
62.5. Go ahead.
62.5. No, you really hit the nail on the head on this being a must-win game for these teams, simply because at 2 losses at the SEC, you have no margin of error. However, I will say Ole Miss, a little bit of a softer schedule. And I say a little bit because they still have Oklahoma and Georgia, 2 teams that can both beat them. But the rest of their 3 games after that are pretty sluggish. LSU, however, after this game, they still got to go to College Station, take on A&M. They got to play Alabama. They got to play Vanderbilt, and they got to play Oklahoma. So if you're looking at that and you're saying who really needs this more, LSU needs this more. Ole Miss wins this game, they probably have 2 losses on the season and will probably be a playoff team.
Yeah, it's tough. -3.5 for Ole Miss. I don't like that.
Type down what you wanted. You got to tell me what you want, man, because I didn't type down anything. So you can pick it right now. Tell me what you want.
I don't like the 62.5. That hook, man, 62 points is quite a bit. And I know
34-31 covers. I mean, yeah, that's a lot of points, but it's not unheard of by any stretch.
Sure. It's still tough with the defense that Ole Miss has. I guess. I'm going to go with Ole Miss covering. I don't like Nussmeier. Just what I've seen of Nussmeier so far, I'm not confident in him. And I like that Ole Miss has a defense that has some statistical analysis to it.
Third in the nation points against on defense, so very solid.
On to the next one. We got another.
Let's get some housekeeping in before we go to the next one, man. Sorry to kill your jive.
You love your housekeeping.
I do love my housekeeping, man. You didn't let me do it before the Ohio State Oregon game.
Let's do it. Come on.
The Big Ten backers want to clearly state that all aspects of our betting segment or any discussions around gambling are for entertainment purposes only. Betting should only take place in states where gambling has been legalized. If you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER or utilize the local resources in your area. Most of these services are free of charge and available 24 hours a day. Please budget accordingly and stick to a strict plan when legally gambling. Do not chase losses by betting on games or props originally not part of your plan, and do not exceed pre-planned budgets. This goes with all the games we've discussed prior to and after this. Thank you all and good luck.
Man, I have not hit the comments at all. Dominique Ambrose says, "What's up, fellas?" Here we go, Dominique. And AJ made it on here. All right. The host of the show, who is not here, he says, "What up, backers?" AJ, you're the man. I hope you're still watching. Red River Shootout is always a blast. It's still rivalry to me. I'm never going to change that. So this one should be fun. And what's the over-under on Kelly meltdowns?
I think it's 3.5 currently at most Vegas books, but we'll have to confirm that to see.
Well, he's definitely going to melt down if he gets this loss. He's going to be having to dance with a lot more recruits losing this game, man.
Most overrated coach in college football, man. Right up there with Lane Kiffin. So this game is actually fitting.
All right. Danos is calling our name. Let's pay some bills, brother, before we get back to Around the Big Ten.
Yum, yum, get your some. Yum, yum, get your some. Yum, yum, get your some. Yum, yum, get your some.
Dano Seasoning, food's favorite flavor.
Yum, yum, get you some.
I'm Joe Burrito, your favorite burrito. Whoa.
Joe,
hey.
We all know you're the best.
What?
You can always do better. Try the new Dano's Hot Chipotle.
Hey. Ooh, that's spicy. Yum, yum.
Yum, yum, get you some.
Yum, yum, get ya some. All right. Vegas is back. Another trip to the Bellagio, man? Did you not get enough bets in already?
You know the drill, buddy.
Hey, man, you had to take a quick helicopter ride there to get it in, didn't you?
No, I'm not afraid. Not a big fan of helicopters, but
it would surprise me one bit.
Yeah.
You'll find a way to get to Vegas every single time. All right. This one is an interesting game to me. Penn State, without a runway, going to Harrisburg and flying all the way to L.A. I don't get it, man. You knew about that? Franklin complained because the State College runway wasn't big enough for them to get out and get to L.A., so they had to bust themselves to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, in order to get out. Like,
that sounds like poor logistical planning there.
First world problems. You have to drive to go to the airport. Man, that's rough. So Josh Pate put on Twitter, he was like, when I become football commissioner, my first order of business is I will be improving the runway. And I was like, why don't you just put a racetrack around Georgia Stadium so that the players can go as fast as they want? That would be my number one.
Too soon? Too soon on that?
I think it was. He never responded. I think it was way too soon. But this game, we talked about being backed in a corner or a wounded animal. And much like Michigan was against SC, SC is backed into that corner. They are a wounded animal right now. They need this game. They are 3-2, both those losses being in the Big Ten. So, number 10, Penn State, 5-0 at USC, 3-2, 3:30, CBS. Bring your A game, Trojans. You're going to have to. This is a make or break game. Penn State needs a lot more runway, but they don't need this game as bad as USC. Penn State has to come out hot because USC has to be ready. They have to be ready. They are that wounded animal. This is do or die time for the men of Troy. A third loss this season, and it would be critical. This animal will be lying in a corner and about to die. Everything they thought, man, there was a lot of fans at USC thinking, we're coming into the Big Ten and we're running the show. Well, that show is running over you right now. It's time to put up or shut up, all right? PSU is a second half team, and I'd like to see them put a full game together because if they can put this team out in the beginning, they're going to walk away with their tail between their legs. And defensively right now, they are number 1 in the nation in quarterback pressures. And Miller Moss has been on his back damn near every time he drops back to pass. Abdul Carter is the new Chomp Robinson, and he will get to Moss. Trust me, he will get to Moss. And if he doesn't, Sutton on the other end will. All right, this is going to be quick and interesting fact for Penn State's defense. Of the offenses so far that they've faced, West Virginia is 39th in the nation. Bowling Green is 51st. Illinois is 100th. UCLA is 127th. 127th. All right, there's an average of 90th in the nation for the teams that they'd faced. 90th. Kent State is 131st. I forgot to add that one in there. That is awful. Awful. All of them are damn near the bottom in the nation. Look, 3 of them are in the hundreds, in triple digits. Maybe their defense is overrated. Just maybe their defense is overrated. What do you think?
Possibly. But to me, college football is a lot about momentum, too. If you keep reading press clippings and you keep being told you have an elite defense, and they do have talent on that side of the ball. This isn't some middle-of-the-road group of 6 team. They have a ton of talent. But to me, USC is an absolute stay away from the rest of the season. You have no idea what USC team you're going to get week in, week out. Is it the team in Vegas that beat a really good LSU team? Is it the team that came back in the second half and dominated Wisconsin? Or is it the team that laid an egg in Minneapolis? You just don't know. And to your point, I think if USC loses this game, it's in their 7-5 season. And I think you got to start asking some really hard questions to Lincoln Riley. So I think everything is on the line for USC in this game. Penn State, you win this game, you basically are vying for the Big Ten championship. And why I say that is because the only other really tough game on your schedule is Ohio State. Washington comes to you. You don't have to fly to Seattle. Purdue, Minnesota, Maryland, all the weaker side of the Big Ten. It is all laid out in front of James Franklin and Penn State. All you have to do is take care of business in Southern California. Question is, I don't know what Southern USC team you're going to see this week.
Yeah, let's see what they're like when they're playing at home. Both of those losses were on the road going all the way across the country. Maybe that's a problem for Lincoln Riley's teams. But Minnesota is not bad defensively. They're 6th in the nation in total defense, giving up, it was 251 yards a game. And scoring defense, they were up in the top 10 too. I'm going to look this up real quick. They were, not in the top 10. They were top 20 at 16. They give up 15.7 points per game. So they're not a bad defensive team, and they were getting after the quarterback. Like I said, their offensive line is the biggest problem, but I don't see Lincoln Riley's offense being held down again. They were held down last week. And if they are, man, it's going to be a long season. It's going to be a long season. And they're going to have to fight on because that's the only thing else they're going to be had to have for the men of Troy. 58th in scoring offense. You thought Lincoln Riley's scoring offense would be a lot better than that. Elite, usually. 58th in the nation, 30.8 points per game, and 37th in total offense, 442.2 yards per game. That is something that's completely out of the realm for Lincoln Riley. They got a defense this year. It's not a great defense. It looked a lot better at some points in the season, but big plays hurt them against Michigan, and not being able to get out of drives against Minnesota hurt them. I don't know what they're going to get either. Give us those Vegas stats, and let's try to make some sort of decision.
Yeah, and I'll tell everybody flat out, and I'm going to say this a few times tonight, this is a flat-out stay-away-from game. You have no idea what you're going to get from these two clubs. With that being said, you saw the spread -4 in favor of Penn State. That's jumped slightly to -4.5 in favor of Penn State. Over-unders jump 1.5. It's now at 50.5 overall. Over the last 36 hours, you've seen approximately 93% of the cash rolling in favor of Penn State. Again, this is that look of that number 4 versus this USC team, not really knowing what you're going to get. However, about 84% of the cash going to the over. I actually go against the grain here. I think whenever you think you have USC figured out, you don't.
Yeah.
And in this case, you come off that terrible loss. I think Riley's got the attention of his team. I actually take the 4.5. Give me the Trojans. How about you?
Wow. Impressive pick. What's interesting about that pick is there's only been one cross-country trip from the Big Ten that's worked out, and that was Indiana going to UCLA. Everyone else has been a loss. Interestingly enough, a lot of them were favorites for the home team anyway, but man, we got to keep an eye on that to see if those cross-country trips are actually making as much of a difference as they were kind of talked about before season. So
LA to Minneapolis is not that bad. Let's be frank. Minneapolis is smack dab in the middle of the country. That is not a terrible
cross. Yeah, but you're going all the way south to all the way north too.
Yeah, I mean, but the Pac-12 travels. You got to realize out here in the West, every flight takes
big states
2.5 hours. Even when you're flying to Salt Lake City, you're flying to Denver, you're flying 2.5, 3 hours. So a 3.5 hour flight is not uncommon for a lot of Pac-12 teams. That's very uncommon in the Midwest and the South. So if USC was flying to Rutgers in Maryland, yeah, I'll give you that, but they're not.
All right.
So I took USC. I want to know where you're going.
I am actually going to go with the under on this one.
All right, going against the grain on the cash. So
no, lay the points. Give me Penn State.
Fair enough. All right, let's get moving.
All right. I don't have the graphic for this one. For some reason, it didn't come through, so we're just going to give it a little Big Ten backers extra. We got Washington going to Iowa City. 3-2 Washington at Iowa, 4-2. Interesting point about this, Iowa, one of their losses is in non-conference. Washington, one of their losses is non-conference. So they each only have one loss in the Big Ten. So playoffs are still in line for both of these teams.
Theoretically. I say that
this is a bigger game than you would imagine. If some of these teams can start to, gel and get peak at the right time, both of them have a shot.
I would say,
actually, you know what?
I would say Iowa a little bit more. And again, now we're starting to play the schedule game, right? Because
let's look at the schedule.
That's what I'm saying. Is UW they're not beating Oregon. They're not,
Indiana, USC, Penn State.
They're not beating
UCLA,
Penn State
and Oregon.
That USC game, I can tell you right now, it's going to be 47 degrees and rainy. It's going to be a chippy, awful game. Indiana's going to be tricky traveling to Bloomington.
At Penn State.
Have a huge fan base. Yeah, this is a really rugged schedule for the University of Washington. Iowa, though, a lot softer, man. If they get past this one, Sparty, Northwestern, Wisconsin, UCLA, Maryland, and then you have that final showdown on Black Friday, which anything can go in an Iowa-Nebraska game. That's just a great game to watch on Black Friday. So,
oh my
to me,
goodness. Iowa's got a chance to make it. You're right.
They really do. I think they can. Again, we'd have to really at some point in the future kind of break down the Big Ten tiebreakers here. I don't know what all those formulas will be at play, but I think this is a must win for Washington. And Washington's going to be one of those scrappy teams this year. I think you got to take last year's team and throw it out the door. Again, don't have the athletes or the horses. They're not flashy. I texted you towards the end of the second quarter, even though you were on a lag, and telling you I thought Michigan was going to run away with that game. Just that spark they got from Tuttle. Washington,
that 17 points unanswered.
In Washington's field goal kicking situation, kid missed 2 straight before making a third. Really suspect there, especially against an Iowa team. You're going to have to kick field goals.
How many did he miss against Rutgers, too?
3.
Holy cow.
He missed
3 in a row. 5 in a row?
He missed 5 in a row. We were all
and he was great last year.
He was great. He actually earned a scholarship last year because of how great he was. He was a walk-on.
Take the dude off. Take his scholarship away. Do it now.
I think I heard that a few times in the stands over the weekend. To me, it was just I don't know. I went into that game pretty sober last week because I wanted to really just understand and watch and see. I have
seriously sober.
Seriously sober, man. It was depressing at times, but it was glorious watching those Michigan fans hanging their heads walking out of the stadium. I will say that, but you don't know what you're going to get from this UW team, and you don't know what you're going to get from this Michigan team. They have a very strong, 5 to 10 best team in the Big Ten feel, right? Where some weeks they're going to rise up and be really good. Other weeks they're going to play down to their competition. I look at Iowa, and what I liked about Iowa last week is a little bit more of that spark on offense, right? Not seeing that same defense as last year. We joked about it. If they could take last year's defense, this year's offense, boy, would they be fun to watch, I think. So
that'd be a damn good team, wouldn't it?
I agree. And this is another game, again, you start staying away from it. When you don't have that feel with these average to good Big Ten teams playing each other, they really are stay away from games. But for us, we have fun with the numbers and the betting, so let's dive into them. Over-under started at 39, jumped up to 41.5 currently.
I'm going to absolutely bet on this. It's not fun for me. This is money. You already did, so don't lie. You're already in Vegas.
No, I will. I peek behind the curtain. When I tell people it's a stay away game, it means I'm not touching it. I don't touch it because I don't have a feel. And Washington is probably the second most team I've watched this year outside of Ohio State. I have no read on them whatsoever.
You're just like your wife.
No, she
don't touch it.
She'd be taking those points in the Huskies all day long. I'm not, but right now you're seeing that spread at -2.5, down from 4.
I think you missed the joke.
No, I got it. I just ignored it. So no, I got it.
That's a lot. You've turned into a real Pacific Northwesterner.
You mean the passive aggressiveness? Yeah, it's coming on strong.
Just ignoring me. Just ignoring these Midwesterners.
Hey, man, they don't call it the Seattle Freeze for nothing, man. So you gotta respect it. But I think with Iowa here at -2.5 and the over/under of 41.5, I think it's going to be a pretty fun environment there at Iowa. Washington fans should enjoy it. However, I don't see a lot of points scored this game. So give me the under at 41.5. How about you?
I mean, you look at both of these teams, 81 in the nation, 79 in the nation. They're among the bottom of the nation in scoring. I'm with you on the under.
Yeah, it's a good read.
So next up, we got what you would have never. I can't talk. What you would never have thought of to start the season. Cal and Pitt are major teams. They could make the playoffs. I mean, there's a world where they could make the playoffs. Cal and Pitt. I cannot believe I'm saying this. Both of those schools seem like somewhere that should be making some type of protest. But we gotta go. We gotta go into it. We gotta go into Cal. We gotta go into Pitt. These are great teams. Pitt is undefeated. Cal's 3-2, right? And they're at number 22 Pitt, 5-0. But Pitt has the toughness of a schedule coming up. They have Cal, obviously, this weekend. They got Syracuse, they got SMU, and they got Clemson still on their schedule. They've played a bunch of nobodies. I think they're overrated, and I think once you give me these stats about Vegas, I'm probably going to pick Cal. But go into it. Tell me what you think.
So spread started -2.5 in favor of Pitt. It's jumped slightly to -3.5 in favor of the Panthers. Over-under started at 59.5, just a slight drop to 58.5. About 80% of it. You want Cal.
Yeah, easy.
I tell you, we talked about this on the phone a few days ago. For all y'all, go back and watch the third down play, Cal Miami.
Yeah.
Blatantly the most obvious targeting I have ever seen in my life. And I absolutely hate the targeting rule. It should be abolished from college football. It's a joke. Throwing people out of games for one misstep. Worst rule ever. However, it is a rule. Blatant targeting on Miami against Cal would have sealed the game. Second week in a row, the ACC replay review team has given the game to Miami. So really
Yeah, it's getting to the point where it's thrown, right?
It's getting to a point where somebody's making a call saying we have one quasi.
And why are they fighting for Miami of all teams? Like, why not fight for Clemson?
I say that because, in all seriousness, you could be looking at a 4-1 Cal team coming into here.
For sure.
You should. In fact, again, go watch the video. It is
a 4-1 Cal team.
It is an automatic first down for Cal, and they win the game by 6. And I know that will never be reflected again in that, but that's something you need to take into consideration. I think what you said is valid about Pitt. Also, if you want to talk about Cal, right? Traveled to Auburn, traveled to Florida State already. They've already been in the Eastern Time Zone twice already this year. So they are used to the travel. They did beat Auburn.
They're going to be doing it a lot.
They are, but that's the choice that their AD made in joining the ACC. So I say that to go over this. I like that. However, I think Pitt is a little bit full. They feasted on a lot of mediocre teams. I say take those points. Give me those Golden Bears. How about you?
I already did it.
Sorry, I was only half listening. Got you down for Cal.
Hey, listen fully from now on. Here we go. Kansas State at Colorado. Just when you thought Colorado wasn't going to make it in the limelight again, here they are coming right back at you. Colorado is at 4-1. 4-1. Kansas State, number 18, 4-1 also at Colorado. So, you got the 4-1. Everyone's got a shot still. UCF and Baylor, those were not really as good a teams as it looked like for Colorado. I think Colorado's a little bit overrated still. They have studs, right? They have Shador, stud. They have Travis Hunter, stud, Heisman candidate. But I don't think they have anything else. I think it's Kansas State all the way. And I don't think their defense is going to be able to stop Avery Johnson. Avery Johnson's going to run wild. He's going to get the passes when he needs to. Dude's an athlete, and probably just as good an athlete as... I know people are going to jump all over me for this, but he's just as good an athlete as Travis Hunter. He's just young. He needs a little bit more time.
I will jump all over you for that. Travis Hunter's a freak of nature, man. He's a freak of nature. Number 1 overall recruit, 5-star, and he's shown every bit of it. I put Travis Hunter in a category of his own. So Avery Johnson's good. I'm not diminishing Avery Johnson, but now that you're starting to get some mock drafts going in the NFL,
Avery Johnson's just raw. He's got some time.
But you're seeing Travis Hunter not only going top 5, you're seeing legitimate debates about him possibly playing both ways, which I told you was absurd. And you're getting some NFL scouts saying that's not out of the realm of possibility, which is unheard of at the NFL level. So kudos to Hunter.
Who's done that in the NFL?
Nobody I can think of. You saw it occasionally. Dion, I think, did play a little bit wide receiver, a couple plays sparingly. You may have saw a little wildcat or something like that, but not on a consistent cadence playing both sides of the ball. So if he is able to do that, which I will –
historical.
It would absolutely be historical. You've seen it at the college level. We saw it at Ohio State with Gamble, and you've seen it a few other times, but not at the NFL level. But let's get into the numbers real fast. You had Kansas State start out -6. That's dropped to -4.5. However, you have seen about 92% of the cash over the last 36 hours rolling back to Kansas State. So wouldn't be shocked to see that spread jump back up to 6. Over under stay consistent at 56.5. Another team in Colorado, I just don't know what I'm going to get week in and week out. I don't think they're going to be a playoff caliber team, even though they have a relatively soft schedule down the stretch. I do think Kansas State handles business. However, in this game, I like to play it a little more safe. I'm going over.
They're both kind of right there, even with each other as far as points scored and points given up. Kansas State points scored 49, given up 47. Colorado points scored. This is ranking in the nation 42nd, and points scored against their defense 40th in the nation. So both right within the same range of each other. But I got number 18, Kansas State, pulling away with this one. Easy, lay the points.
Yeah, I could see that. And Kansas State has a really soft schedule to the last week of the season. They travel to Ames to play Iowa State. So they get past this one, they could be looking at it as a one-loss team going into the last week of the season. So,
well, I think we got to get into just one more commercial here. Let's go ahead and give the dog some love. This is all brought to you by College Football Dogs. We are on their College Football Dogs TV network. Here we go.
On the College Football Dogs website, you'll find a main page that features some of our biggest and newest stories. Our conference pages for content related to your favorite team's conference. Our team store, where we have products that are available all year long, as well as gear available for a limited time only. Our podcast page, where you can see when one of the 12-plus College Football Dogs podcasts is streaming live on social media. Our subscription page, where you can join our Discord. If you're interested in becoming a contributor at College Football Dogs, email us at info@collegefootballdogs.com. If you enjoy any College Football Dogs content, we really do appreciate any donations you can make by visiting the donate page on our website or scanning the QR code here.
College Football Dogs, for the fans.
Only on College Football Dogs. We are back, Big Ten backers. Here we go. It is time for Rapid Fire. Let's get into this. Let's do it rapidly. We got Northwestern 2-3 at 3-2 Maryland. Let me pull up the graphic for you real quick. This is the biggest game in the Big Ten ever. Northwestern at Maryland. What do you got here, man?
another stay away from game for obvious reasons. These are two pretty mediocre squads. You got Maryland at minus 10.5, over under at 45.5. Ugly, sloppy, two bad teams. Give me the under. How about you?
Give me Maryland all the way. Lay the points. That offense is going to take it easy. Easy.
All right.
Rapid fire. Wisconsin. Wisconsin coming off a good win. 3-2 at 4-1 Rutgers. Rutgers still has a shot at 4-1. That one loss being in the Big Ten, so this is a must-win for them.
So you see, yeah, it is a must-win for them. And in Wisconsin, I really don't think it's a playoff team, but any team with two losses at this point has to win out to have a shot. But Rutgers minus 2.5, over under at 40.5. I don't think what you saw last week from Wisconsin is sustainable. To me, Rutgers can run the ball. Wisconsin's good against the run. Give me the under.
Wisconsin is good against the run. Defensively, they're 18th in the nation in points scored against. But offensively, they have nothing. 72nd in the nation. I am going to... Ooh, man, this is a tough one. This is a real tough... You went with the under on this?
I did.
Lay the points. Give me Rutgers.
All right.
Sorry, AJ. Went against your Badgers.
Yeah.
Purdue at Illinois. Another one. Big for Illinois. this is a big stats game for almost every team in the nation. 1-4 Purdue at number 23 Illinois, 4-1, but 1-1 in the Big Ten. Huge for Illinois in the contention for the Big Ten. Big game. Every game's big from now on.
It is, and Illinois, coming down the stretch is going to have some challenging games, so they really have to show up and show out. After this game, they got Michigan and Oregon, so really going to see what Illinois is made of here. Purdue maybe
Purdue's trash. Come on,
they
man.
are.
Come
They're
on.
absolute trash, and the spread showing that. You're seeing Illinois minus 21.5. You're seeing an over under of 48.5. Really don't like anything about this game, so I actually, to play it safe, I actually like the over here. How about you?
Who would you pick versus Purdue and Mississippi State, Andrew? Hot garbage, he says.
That's a pretty bad matchup. But
That might be a burns when you pee game.
no, that's going to be next year, the Big Ten SEC, matchup.
Challenge. Yeah.
When you go,
All right.
everybody. If you
Wait,
just
sorry,
stack rank.
where did you take this? Did you take Illinois?
I took the over. No, I took the
Took the
over. I
over?
don't like that hook. The hook's at 21.5.
21.5. Yeah, Illinois offensively, they're terrible. 89th in the nation in scoring points per game, 16th in defensive points per game. Purdue is last in last in every category. 132nd in offensive points per game, 129th in defensive points per game. How do you pick Purdue? How do you pick the over or under? Give me Illinois. They're going to score, even though their offense is terrible.
All right.
They're going to get 56 points. Everyone scores at least 56 points against
Yeah,
Purdue.
you'll see a trend with these very mediocre games, these two average teams by and large. I know Illinois is ranked.
Don't give me Illinois' average. Get off. Mississippi State by a field goal, he says.
No, Illinois, nice win against Nebraska. You didn't do much against Penn State. That Kansas win looks like garbage, and you played nothing else since. So let's see what they do against Michigan and Oregon, and I'll go into it from there.
I mean, they played Penn State pretty close at Penn State for the first half.
I still see a loss next to their name. I mean, to me, it's close. It's fine, but it's not good enough. You got to continue to grow. And that, like I said, I want to see what they do against Michigan and Oregon. So,
all right, another tricky one. This is a real tricky one coming up, and I'm interested to see what your analysis is. Minnesota at UCLA. UCLA's been playing feisty, even though they're losing games. They've been playing great against good teams. 3-3, the best 3-3 team in the nation, according to Row Your Boat, Sky Ma, Go Gophers coach. And going out to UCLA, 1-4 and 0-3 in the Big Ten. What do you got here?
a lot of hot garbage, really. You got Minnesota at -5.5. You're seeing an over/under at 40.5. And you're right, UCLA scrappy, but they're still losing games by double-digit points by and large. So you can call it scrappy all you want. To me, you're only scrappy if you're in one-score games and you're fighting and clawing at the end.
Against rated teams. I mean, you're among the worst in the nation at 1-4. You're 125th in scoring offense and 88th in scoring defense, and you're staying within 20 points of two rated teams.
I get it, but I mean, and I know Indiana wasn't ranked when they played them, but you're right. Their 4 straight games have been against ranked teams. And this is one of those with a first-year head coach. You have no idea. Do the wheels really start falling off? Is this a 1-11 team? Maybe they beat Fresno State at the end of the season, but this could be a 1-11, 2-12 team, and you want to really see, can this coach keep a team in a game against an average opponent, especially at home? I would stay away from this one again. I don't know what you're going to get from Minnesota coming off that high of USC. Does it come crashing down to reality? Does UCLA stay scrappy? To me, even a scrappy game here, Minnesota wins by 7, not surprising anybody. Lay the points, give me the Gophers.
Yeah, make it 2 of us. Lay the points. All right. Utah, Arizona State. We got another Big 12 contender right here, right? Both these teams are in the contention. Utah, number 16, 6-1, 1-1 in the Big 12 against Arizona State, 4-1, 1-1 in the Big 12. Tell me about those Vegas numbers, baby.
So Utah is -5.5 right now with an over-under of 45.5. You've actually seen both the over-under and the spread stay pretty consistent all week. However, about 85% of the cash roll into Utah, so you may see that spread rise up here over the next day or two. Really just not sure what you're going to get from this Utah team. I expected a lot more from them. I thought that loss last week to Arizona was very surprising, especially at home. They very rarely lose at home, especially in a game they should win. Not sure really what you're going to get overall. Again, Oklahoma State, not the team you and I both thought that they would be this year. Baylor's a barely bowl-eligible team. So really not sure about this Utah team. Arizona State, like you said, they got the one loss on the year to Texas Tech, which I think is not a great loss. But if they somehow eke this out at home, I think they could go on a little bit of a run. Their final three is tough: Kansas State, BYU, and Arizona. So a little bit of a challenge down the stretch. Since I just don't have a good read on this Utah team, and I know Arizona State is capable of putting up points, I like the over here. How about you?
Arizona State capable of putting up points. 30th in the nation in points per game. But Utah's 21st in the nation in points per game given up.
But they haven't played
taking the points.
But they haven't played anybody really.
Yeah, they got a lot on the back end of their schedule too, still coming up. I am gonna go with Utah. Lay the points. I know they don't play real well in away games compared to home games, but give me Utah. Give me that square jaw coach every day. I'm taking him.
He is ruggedly handsome. I'll give you that. Yeah.
Hey, you said it, not me.
I'm comfortable with it. I'm comfortable with it.
Here we go. All right, we got going into the group of 5, number 17, Boise State, who should probably already be in the Pac-12. 4-1, 1-0 in their conference against Hawaii. 2-3, 0-1. They talked about a team that we just talked about who could be 1-12 or 2-12 or 2-11 and lost to them. UCLA. Just barely lost to them, but man, Boise State's going to trounce them. Lay the points already.
Yeah, and I see that. And that 2-3 is deceptive. Hawaii's 2 wins this year against FCS schools.
What the real bet should be is how many touchdowns Ashton Jonty has.
He needs to start getting some serious Heisman consideration. I know it's a mountain time zone for you all. Tune in to Boise State, and we're going to keep talking about them on this show because we do anticipate Boise State being that group of 6 playoff team, and I think the world's going to be very impressed with them. Also with Boise State, number 1 in the nation in scoring offense. They score at will. However, they give up points at will. Something I've been kind of tracking with them, and I'm going to continue to follow quite heavily, is the over with Boise State. That's what I'm taking here.
101st in the nation in defensive points per game given up. 105th, sorry.
Yeah, they score a ton, and I think they score quickly. But if you just look, gave up 45 to Georgia Southern, 37 to Oregon, that's fine. Gave up, 30 to Utah State, which is not a good team. So, I mean, even gave up 14 points to Portland State, right? So they just not a good defense. They're going to score. They're going to score at will, but they're going to give up a lot of points. So I see the over here being the easy play. I think at least one game left, my friend.
61.5?
61.5.
Yeah. Well, either way, yeah, you could either lay the.
I already wrote you down for Boise State. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't use
Give it to me.
PT.
You can't erase and I mean, it's just delete.
Nope.
Delete. Come on, man.
Once it's on the spreadsheet, it's on the spreadsheet, man.
All right, here we go. Give me the Burns when you pee.
Oh, I got a great one for you this week, man. I got the 133rd worst defense in college football, playing the 134th worst defense in college football. I want to hear it. What's your guess?
Can't read, can't write, Kent State.
Hey.
Give me Ball State all day.
Nah. Ball State, you don't even want to hear the spreads? It's -6.5, Ball State. The
They
Cardinals.
at least got a scoring offense that's under triple digits in the nation, so I'll go with Ball State. And they have a win.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Who did Ball State beat?
They beat the Tigers of Missouri State.
Yeah, give me Ball State.
Yeah, that's another sneaky play. Just so everyone
Turns out I like balls.
Yeah, no shame in that. But another sneaky play to watch for all y'all out there. Again, I'm a big group of six better. I like it. Ball State just gives up points at will. Kent State's played they played Tennessee, they played Penn State, they played Pitt. So they played some tougher teams. Ball State's pretty much played nobody outside of Miami, and they're giving up points at will. So they're pretty easy over if you want to look at them throughout the season.
Oh, yeah. The over would have been a great pick there.
Nope. I
Especially
already
with
have
those defenses.
Balls State down for you, buddy.
Balls State, 6.5, man. That's rough after.
You are 2-3
that.
this year in this game, by the way. So you are at a 40% winning percentage.
We'll take it.
All right.
All right. Well, we're going to talk a little bit. We have the group of 5. Who's left? We got Liberty left. UNLV might be out of it. Memphis is out of it. Tulane's out of it. Texas State's out of it. Who else is left? Army? Navy?
Army and Navy.
What is the hook with Army and Navy, though?
What do you mean in terms of odds?
If they are to play each other at the end of the season, is it going to be feasible for them to get in if they're both 11-0 or one of them's 11-1?
Yeah, so let's
or 10-1, sorry.
Let's paint that picture a little bit for everybody. So everybody knows the Army-Navy game. It's on its own Saturday, right? No college football games are done. The conference championships are done. Army-Navy's its own game, which one of the many reasons why it's a really cool game. However, the wrinkle this year is you got Army at 5-0 and you got Navy at 5-0. And this is not the same Navy team we're all used to with the triple option and barely doing anything. Actually got a passing game this year and really playing well. And Army's been consistent also. But the trick with everything we just talked about is the fact that the college football playoffs are picked on Sunday after conference championships. If you heard what we just said, Army and Navy play 6 days after the playoffs are picked. So there is an actual realistic scenario here where you have possibly 2 11-0 teams playing 6 days after that, or to your point, a 10-1 and an 11-0, and we don't know if that 11-0 team is going to win or lose. And what is the selection committee going to do if they're looking at a 12-1 Boise State Mountain West champion? You don't know what you're going to get on that other side.
Are they going to go full communist mode and not take one of the?
No, I actually think
I'm speechless here. Like, I don't think they will.
I
don't
think
they'll wait.
I think they could get themselves an out, though. I think what they could say, and I'm just using for purposes of discussion, let's say Navy's 11-0, Army's 10-1. I think the committee could actually say, listen, if Navy wins this game, Navy has that last playoff spot. If Navy loses this game, Boise State has it. I would be shocked if they did something like that.
They will not wait. The service academies will be second fiddle, just like they were last year, where Minnesota got chosen to go to a bowl game at 5-7 because they had to wait for Army and Navy to play to make a decision. It's all about money. They don't care. Service academies, they don't care. National pride, they don't care.
Nobody cares more about money than the United States government. So I want to be very, very clear about that. Second off, it is completely unpatriotic to not put one of the service academies in there if they deserve it. And 3, what a hell of a story that would be to have a 12-0 Navy team playing in the playoffs. take you back to, post World War II era, man. It would be awesome. Everybody.
It would be sweet. It would be historic. But I don't see them waiting on it. I do not see it waiting on it. This is a business now. They're not waiting for people to decide to play after it's announced. That's up to Army and Navy. They wanted to keep their tradition. Well, you kept your tradition, and now you kept yourself out of the playoffs.
Well, you never saw a world where Army and Navy were going to be at this level, and I think yeah, and I don't know what you're going to do because
I think they brought it on themselves.
Yeah, but there's something about you're typically watching a 4-7 versus a 5-6 team, and it's the pageantry of the Army, Navy, Americans across the spectrum watching it. It's just fun. It's never a very good game. It's a very
I want to go
watch. Yeah, it's incredible, man, to see the President of the United States at that time there, Commander in Chief, both sides. I mean, just the pageantry of it. I don't know what you can do, and you're not going to switch that game, let's say, to the Sunday. Of the committee and say, hey, pick the games at 6:00 Eastern. We're going to play this game earlier because nobody's going to.
When do they pick the? Is that a Tuesday that they pick the games?
No, it's Sunday. It's right
Sunday.
After conference, right after because Big Ten's always the last conference game Saturday night, and then that Sunday morning is when they pick the playoffs. So they don't even wait to that. And the Army Navy's not going to push it up because now your game's competing with conference championship games. You're not going to get the eyeballs. And you're certainly not going to put it on Sunday and compete against the NFL. Nobody would do that. So, short of them putting it with the rest of college football, which I know they're trying to differentiate it from, really interesting conundrum this year.
Yeah, they might have to move that game up. For once. If they both are undefeated, they might have to move it up. That's my only solution.
I don't know if you can. I'd have to look at where the site of that game is. It's sometimes Philadelphia. I've seen a few different places. Baltimore, you're right. They don't play at their home stadiums, but I cannot see them adjusting that game. I've never even heard.
Play it on Friday night.
You'd have to see. Again, I don't know what you would do. You'd have to also look, too, again, if it's at Baltimore or Philadelphia, they always play at the Ravens or Eagles stadiums. You'd have to look at
what's going on.
With those NFL teams. Let me see here if I can just pull it up real quickly. Not seeing it. It's being played at Northwest Stadium where the Washington Commanders play.
All right.
So I like that. A little bit of a different feel to it. So
for sure.
I don't know. It's something we're going to keep an eye on. Again, we're going to talk about Boise because they're really looking like that front runner for that group of 5. But if Army
might make it into one of the top 4.
And Liberty just squeaked by yesterday in overtime against a bad FIU team. They have an atrocious schedule. I really don't think anyone wants to take Liberty, especially what happened with the Fiesta Bowl in Oregon. Even if they go 13-0, I really don't see Liberty at play unless Boise State gets a second loss and Army and Navy stumble. So,
yeah, I really don't want to see Liberty in that. I mean, you got to play someone. And they've had the chance. They've been good for a few years. But, hey, we got to get out of here. We've been talking overtime for quite a while. Big Ten backers, well, thank you all for being here. We got some merch coming pretty soon in the next couple of weeks, so be on the lookout for that if that's something that you're interested in. It's going to be a very short supply, so if you want it, you better get on it as soon as it comes in. Big Ten backers are out. Thanks again, Vegas Matt, for joining us. Thank you for flying back from Vegas just to be on this show. And good night to all. Have a great weekend. It's going to be some good college football games coming up. Thank you all. God bless. Big Ten backers, we are out of here. Wrap it up. Boom shakalaka. Maybe. My button will not click. I can't click the mouse. Story of my life.
Let's go, Purdue sucks. But so does Michigan in Ohio State. Go you.
Love you, man. I'd like to know where Lou Holtz is right now. This is a tough team right here. We're proud to be from Ohio, and it's always been Ohio against the world.
Who taught you how to fight? Who taught you how to be a warrior?
I hate playing against these guys. I hate playing them.
Like, you're making me uncomfortable. Like, I don't.
You better get me right now.
They're fighting for clicks. We're fighting for wins. Right? This game ain't going to be played in Hollywood.
We're in LA. It's us and USC.
We are at the top of the Big Ten Conference. I mean, we're at the top of any conference. I don't ever look at ourselves below anybody. We are
best there is, plain and simple. I mean, I wake up in the morning, I piss excellence.
Sure, you get some of that NIL money that he's sharing with Dan Lanning, but sure, you get.
There's some things going on that aren't right as well, so we'll talk about how to handle it.
Really, 2 or 3 beers or 4. I've probably done that 1,000 times in my life.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
Love you, man.